Hey everyone, believe it or not, this is That Jesus Podcast. That Jesus Podcast exists to entertain and edify listeners with conversations focused on Jesus and the gospel of peace.
It does.
And we're trying to start up again. Welcome, Titus, back from the other side of the world.
Great to be here for our annual episode.
Yes. And just to provide some more accountability and just one of my favorite people on the face of the earth, Mr. Christopher, good to see you here tonight in all of your mustachioed glory.
Here I am.
So yes, we cannot get the itch out of our system to do a podcast that talks about Jesus and talks about hot takes on current events and maybe once in a while has something worthwhile. So Titus, how's life going for you?
Oh, it's pretty good. I feel like we're fairly settled into life here in Dehradun, and it's a good life. Like I came to India prepared to suffer, and my life got much easier moving to India. There's more conveniences here, I feel like, and it's just a great life. I enjoy my job more. So yeah, living my best life now.
That's encouraging to hear. Are you making ends meet there? Keeping the rupees or whatever flowing?
Yeah, I'm able to put dal chawal on the table, and we have a roof over our head. Although they don't really do roofs here, which is why every monsoon the walls get very wet and the paint peels. But there is a concrete slab over our heads, which is good.
That's great.
Concrete
And Christopher,
slab.
you're the only one represented tonight that's actually hailing from a city mentioned in the Bible. So how's life in the city of brotherly love?
This is cheating a little bit, but yes. Did you ask a question? I think I missed the question.
I asked you how life was going.
Life is going well. Not without its complications, but currently we are living in the city of Philadelphia. We have a recently turned 2-year-old, and
wow, that's hard to believe. You guys got married like 6 months ago.
Yeah, something like that. And a second imminently preparing. I was trying to think if you guys knew about that.
A second 2-year-old coming into your life?
A second 2-year-old.
A second future 2-year-old?
Future 2-year-old. Yeah.
Well, you heard it here first, folks, or maybe you didn't. Congratulations.
We didn't necessarily blast it around, so it's hard to know it's hard to remember who all found out.
Well, that's great. Yeah, well, we are still up here in northern Wisconsin and settling in for another long winter. I have a new job. I taught at a tribal school for most of 8 years anyhow, part-time initially, and now for the first time I am teaching somewhere else. It's only the second school district I've taught in the U.S., which is interesting because I've been in the teaching profession for almost 20 years. But yeah, I am an instructional coach at the school, so I get to work with the teachers and support them in what they're doing.
Cool.
And now I'm a podcaster again, which is what every white man needs in his life as they approach their midlife crisis.
10 years past the rage.
My mic just dropped off. Do I sound different?
Nope, you don't sound different. And we definitely have some lag as well, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah. So we're going to continue with the kind of sort of format we were working toward when our last episode dropped in January. We want to talk about That Other Kingdom, where we're bringing a news story about current events, something that's going on in the world around us, often politics, but it could be anything. And then secondly, we either want a conversation with somebody, a guest, or kind of do a Bible study, a reflection on a devotional practice, or some sort of Jesus-centered sort of conversation. That's going to be our focus, at least for now, until we make something else up. So Christopher, no, not Christopher, I'm going to start with Titus. Do you have something to bring to us from That Other Kingdom?
Yeah, hang on. Let me pull up the requirements that you gave us.
Oh, just me.
Just now looking at the guidelines.
Ground rules and purposes for talking about that other kingdom. Present your news event, keep them specific with a link headline if possible. Well, I don't have that. Rather than a vague gesture at the universe. That actually sounds kind of awesome. You should have a couple well-developed things to actually say about the story you bring. Okay. I
That's
do have
right.
a story.
Fair.
I don't have a link, but I do have a story, and you can decide if it's a vague gesture at the universe or not. So I don't know if you guys heard about this or not, but there was a fairly well-known conservative political commentator, and
So I don't know what this sounds like in post processing, but to me, and I think to Christopher, I think Titus is having a little bit of speaking in tongues coming upon him. Are you interpreting this, Christopher?
can
Not
you
at
not hear me?
all.
Okay.
Can you
Well,
literally
Titus,
not hear
you
me?
can't
There he
speak
goes.
among the saints unless you have an interpreter.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Oh boy. We hear tell that the
This will
internet
be
in
fun.
Titus's part of the world is not as developed as it is in some places. Either that or Titus is in a cement building and
Yeah.
yeah.
Or his
Well,
or the wires somewhere between have gotten fried.
that's right. Well, Christopher, you actually shared an article on Facebook, and it's kind of the sort of article when I see it, I'm like, okay, shrug, just sounds like a thing that people do that happens. But you shared that this is kind of personal. So the headline is 33 people indicted following FBI drug operation in Philadelphia's Kensington section. And so the FBI did some sort of crackdown on some drug kingpins in an area that's
Yeah.
nearby you. Why does this matter, brother?
Yeah. It matters, not necessarily saying it should matter to everybody, but it matters to me because Kensington is the neighborhood that we bought a house in. And I walk to work. I walk to the train. I take the train to work. I walk to the train at a stop called Kensington and Allegheny, which in Philadelphia is kind of infamous for being like the area of an open air drug market. And between my house and the train station, I regularly have people, like, I'll walk by and they'll just like call out what they have to me. And anybody who's lived in an area like this, that's not that special to experience. But
What you're saying is you don't actually look like a drug user walking by. They're not profiling you. It's just everybody.
they might be profiling me somewhat in the sense that a lot of the drug users here tend to be like out of towners. People coming to Kensington specifically for the drugs here.
Interesting.
It's a little bit of Kensington is a little bit of the epicenter of like the fentanyl crisis in Philadelphia. I don't know how influential it is beyond the city, but for sure in Philadelphia. And they cut a lot of their drugs with horse tranquilizer. And so if you've ever heard people talk about trank, or like the trank lean or the Kensington lean, that's like people who have just stopped dead in their tracks. Not great wording, I'm sorry. People who have frozen because they are high on horse tranquilizer. So their
Is that
bodies
like
slow way
ivermectin?
down.
No.
I don't think so. I don't know much of the actual science of the drugs, but I do know it's pretty harmful to the body. It can create really terrible sores. People genuinely look like they're dead. Like I've lost count of the people who I have tried to like check on to see if they're alive. And they always have been, but they're just in a really, really, really deep high, and are usually don't want to be woken up.
Hmm.
But yeah, they literally just slump over, like their whole body. I mean, it's tranquilizer. The whole body relaxes. Anyways, so that's like my context right now currently, and there was recently like a pretty massive coming from LA. It didn't feel this massive because for those who don't know, like I grew up in LA, and I've definitely seen like larger takedowns from like a numbers standpoint, but I think this was more significant in that the FBI was involved. They arrested 29 of the people they indicted, which is a pretty high percentage. Basically wiped out an entire gang called the Weymouth Street Gang, which is just like a couple blocks from my house. Like I walk past these guys every day. So I don't entirely know what all that means. We're very, very, very new to the neighborhood, and I'm still learning a lot about like there's like this competition between the residents and the drug users, and obviously like the dealers. And those are not always the same people. I mean, the gang lived here, so they're technically residents, I suppose. But most of the drug users are homeless, and so there's like this really, really complicated conflict of interest between like how do we care for victims of drug abuse and the whole like business around that and pharmaceuticals and stuff, because most of these drugs are coming through pharmaceutical companies, just bad doctors who are selling them to drug dealers. And so how do you care for the victims of that while also caring for the residents who have these people just like looking dead on their doorstep? So in some ways, like this raid feels helpful to the community, but on the other hand, it feels like it also goes against some of my convictions about violence. And so there's part of me as a Christian, I like that my community is getting rid of this evil, but I also have a distaste for the violence that the government uses to address evil. So that's like that's for me, that's like the interesting complication as I'm like learning the community, because there's a part of me that's like, I mostly just want to learn. I don't want to necessarily try to say or proclaim what it means for our neighborhood, because I'm still learning. But on a kind of higher level, it was this interesting thing of like, this is actually could be super tangibly beneficial to our community. But I am also one who tends to say that Christians cannot participate in like politics and police work. And also like Kash Patel was here in Philly talking about this, which is just a whole nother dynamic. My first thought is like most of my neighbors are Puerto Rican. And so my first thought was like, oh, so this is how they're going to get the Puerto Ricans. And I don't mean to be crass, but like they can't use ICE. So they'll just indict everybody as a part of a gang system. That I don't this whole investigation predates the Trump administration, and so I tend to think that these were just local FBI agents for the most part that Kash Patel swooped in and stamped his name on.
So how does
but my first cynical thought was like, okay, Kash Patel is here. This is a Trump administration move.
Yeah. How do the folks in the community, as far as you know, feel about it? Like, are they generally rah-rah, or does it feel like do they feel like they're being targeted?
I haven't had a chance to have many conversations with them. This all happened within the past week. The drug dealers up like on my street have disappeared. I don't think they were arrested. I think they just disappeared.
Wow.
Like I think they're lying low. There's one guy I saw today for the first time since it happened. The my my feeling from past conversations over the past couple of months with my neighbors and other people in Kensington is that my guess is it's they're pretty happy. Like the people who have lived here for decades or all their lives are probably happy to see the open air drug market get addressed. Just recently, like there's a lot of wound care just because of the nature of the drugs creates a lot of open wounds. There's a lot of wound care stations on the avenue that we live closest to, and that was recently banned by the city of Philadelphia because it creates like a gathering point for people. And so that the residents like that because then people don't gather. Like there's like this thing where like the wound care, like the mobile wound care units come because this is where the people who are on drugs and need wound care are, but then that kind of increases the traffic, which then, there's more needles and just open air drugs and people bleeding on the streets. So the residents don't like that, and so they like that the wound care units were banned. But like as a Christian, that also doesn't feel great because, regardless of the reason, people are suffering.
So Titus, how can Christopher be both thankful for the hopefully increased safety of his community and also lament the use of the use of physical force? Or is physical force okay in this case, just long as Chris isn't wielding the guns?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do we need to lament every time police do anything? Probably not. I kind of feel like what would Jesus's perspective be if he was on the street? He'd probably be like, well, Rome is doing what Rome does, whether it's banning the wound stations or arresting the drug sellers, whatever it is, it happens. That the largest gang in America is taking down smaller gangs. Uh, and Christians need to keep doing what they're called to do, And maybe that means defying the Philadelphia law that you can't have a wound station. Maybe Christians should be out there with the wound station anyways, But also we don't want to, create problems for the neighbors.
Yeah.
Unintentionally while we're trying to help others. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit complicated, but I do think sometimes we can kind of overthink the police thing. Do I need to be happy or sad? I mean, I think you can be happy when police do a good thing, or a better thing than the other things they're doing. Maybe you don't want to call it good, but it's better than some other things they could be spending their time doing. I think that's fine to celebrate that. And at the same time be like, okay, well, what's my calling? What am I supposed to be doing?
I think I'd agree with you. We've talked about Romans 13, and this is always in the back of our head. We've talked about Romans 13 before, and it's always in the back of my head that God does ordain empire to wield the sword, and this feels like a thing. On the other hand, I can think of much more complicated situations like bombing boats without any sort of due process, and claiming that, yes, they were filled to the gills with drugs, and there's no real clarity on that. And is this an effective use? And so I think these sorts of situations are and should be complicated for Christians. Complicated, yes, because we're looking from the outside into this kingdom that's using force, but also not complicated because we're still given the same thing to do, to pray for peace, to help where we can, and to love our enemy. Do you guys feel safer now, Christopher?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been here long enough to feel particularly unsafe, just to be honest. I mean, it's been weird, walking down the street in 4 a.m. to my train or late at night coming back and seeing it. But I would like there is a certain amount of comfort to be like, I know that this drug market causes a lot of problems, and I see the suffering. I mean, these people, even if they crave it, even if there's like emotional and mental illness going on that causes people to do drugs or whatever the reason
Mm-hmm.
might be, I can see that they're suffering. And
Yeah.
so there's like this overall, I think, relief of like, if this is what on the face of it says it is, this seems like it can only be a good thing for my neighbors. And it feels within, like you said, like within the realm of the kind of preservatory nature of what the government is supposed to do to hold back evil. My cynicism says that there's probably more going on that I don't see, and I don't necessarily have a reason other than that I just distrust the U.S. government.
A safe bet. Titus, did you have any other thoughts, or did you have something you wanted to share from your perch there?
About this story or my story that
Or
I started
do you have a story?
gardening up? Not really. What did you hear from me when I started introducing my story? Nothing?
We heard you speaking in tongues, I think.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I was gonna say that I don't know if you guys heard about this news story or not, but there was a pretty, popular, well-known conservative, politics commentator who was speaking at a university and got assassinated. And so that happened recently. Um, Another thing that's been happening is, the president of the United States is deporting people, and
Mm.
deploying the military to cities. Um, yeah, those are kind of some news headlines in case you guys haven't noticed. I seen some online activity about these things.
Yeah. I think our brand is to give a lot of lukewarm takes for the most part. So yeah, give it about 2 more weeks and then we can talk about Charlie Kirk.
Dude,
But no,
Charlie Kirk is global news. Everyone in India is talking about it. Like
that's
Really?
just the other day, someone was like, "Oh, you're 31." That's how old, right?
weird.
It's kind of weird that I'm on the other side of the planet and people have martyrized him here as well. All the Christians are like, "What a martyr," you know?
Interesting. Do folks in India follow US politics pretty closely?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the English-speaking Christians especially probably follow it more than Indian
Sure.
politics. I mean, Indian politics
Sure.
they kind of follow because they're kind of scared being a minority and, just it's pretty
Uh-huh.
straightforward what their opinion about Indian politics, and then American politics is just like they're following all of the same media that everyone in America is. They
Mhm.
know exactly what's going on. They know who the popular influencers are. Like the left right divide is global. It's not an American thing. And it's just maybe not quite as yeah, I would say I've been out of the States for a while, so I forget how much it has permeated conservative Christian culture in the States. It's not as much, but it definitely exists here. That
Mhm.
sort of mindset and influence for sure.
Yeah, well, my news story, and this is more of one of those stories that's fun or weird or silly, but also kind of a Rorschach test for how I react to it. So, Mississippi, lab monkeys escape overturned truck near Heidelberg, Mississippi. And the Jasper County Sheriff's Department asserted that the monkeys were infected with a variety of dangerous human communicable viruses. And then they said,
Oh, no.
actually, that's false. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the monkeys. And obviously, again, does this story have a point? Are the good people in Mississippi safe? Probably. I lived in a country, as you, Titus, that you also have monkeys all over the place, but these were lab monkeys. And to hear the phrase monkeys, lab, escape, those three words just kind of trigger all sorts of fantastical scenarios. My reaction, though, was not shock or worry or surprise. It's just, okay, here's another thing. And over the last few years, we talked about Charlie Kirk being shot, assassinated, President Trump tearing down the White House and building a ballroom, bombing boats that we think have drugs with no actual process for that. And even global events, it just seems the line between what's real and what's not real is totally blurred. And of course, this makes me think of AI as well. In my current position, I'm working with a lot of AI programs, and how do we implement AI with the students without it being a detriment? And it is insane. I have a friend who's regularly posting on his Facebook these videos he makes from AI with him and his wife doing crazy things. And it's just it's just kind of weird. Actually, the friend, I believe, has been on the podcast before. Anyhow, so when I see the lab monkey story, and I just imagine all of the conspiracy theories, and some of the conspiracy theories that actually have some truth to them, and some of them that are just ridiculous, and RFK as the head of the CDC or whatever. My question is, what is truth?
That seems like you were what
That's
was
an incredible segue.
What was the phrase you used? Lobbing something into the universe. I feel like that there qualifies.
Gesturing to the universe.
It's the universe. That's literally what that phrase is. What is truth?
Yes, but brother, I started with lab monkeys. So
Lab monkeys. So are we gonna have the Mississippi virus now?
Yeah. Do either of you guys have this sense of epistemological fatigue? Dennis is Googling epistemological right now.
No, I think that I just don't think about some of those things as much. And maybe this is partially because I'm on the other side of an Eastern mindset is less concerned with objective truth anyways. So maybe it's the waters that I swim in. But yeah, it's I think just more interested in how people are living their lives and what makes real world difference, and less concerned about all of the epistemological battles going on right now. Not that they don't matter, but I think that sometimes they are pretty disconnected from people's real lives.
What do you think, Christopher? You have very real things happening in your neck of the woods that are making news. I'm up here in northern Wisconsin, very far away from monkeys or the Gulf of Mexico / Gulf of America. And yet I do have little crossovers with, there was an email about funding for our school and whether that would be cut, and free lunch programs and things like that. Yeah, so I guess we all have little bits of reality, but it also seems like a spectator sport, and I think that troubles me a little bit.
Yeah, I think I was thinking, I had a thought about this either today or yesterday about how in some ways it feels, and I'm sure this is not an original thought, so if there's an article or book out there that I read and I just forgot, I forgive me, but it feels like a Tower of Babel moment, where it feels really, really disconcerting and scary, and my mind goes to this place where, yeah, the idea of what is truth, how are we going to determine a consensus for how to discern truth? Already, with Trump's invention of fake news, the term fake news, we've spent the last 10 years increasingly going further and further apart about like, oh, that's probably just fake news because like that wouldn't, you know, the first time I talked with a coworker, I was at a totally different job. Um, on January 6th, I came. I was like, "Did you hear what like happened on January 6th?" And she was like, "Talk about how it's like Democrats." So I was like, "No, these were Trump voters." And she said, "Trump voters wouldn't do that." Just and I don't. I guess I'm not necessarily intending to pick on Trump voters, but to demonstrate that like even more so, we're just further and further apart to like even though AI has not yet gotten to the place where it should be convincing, we can already, you know, be like, oh, that's AI or that's not true, or like, how do you know if that's true? You know, that's a spin or whatever, whether it's AI or just the news media. And so
Mhm.
I come back to the like Tower of Babel thing. It just feels like we have no ability to understand each other, which could ultimately be a good thing if it forces us to talk to people face to face.
Wow, so you're
Yeah,
tying in
maybe.
the technology of AI with the Tower of Babel and then the confusion of the languages. That's with not being able to understand each other smooth.
Yeah. Well, I think I think that it does come down to sort of trying to live in the reality of things. Um, my When I applied for my job in my current position, my the principal and the guy interviewing me, he's like, "So, how comfortable are you with implementing technology into classrooms and working with students to use technology and stuff?" Like, yeah, it's kind of an open-ended question. And I said, to be honest, I love technology. I've used it all my life. I think it has value, but I said, to be honest, my focus right now is how can I get kids away from um screens more rather than using it are using tech using screens more. How can I get them away from that? And he's like, "Yeah, I see your point." And he gave me the job, so I guess it was the right answer. But as powerful as the tools are, it's not making a difference in as an educator, it's not making a difference in our test scores. It's not making a difference in our ability to read or do math. Um, Reading is at an all-time low. Reading ability is at an all-time low in the US basically ever right now. Our test scores are terrible. So much for the information revolution that's making us all smarter and better people. That's positive. No, I feel like I've used this passage before, and it's a very familiar one. But it's kind of a horse I like to not a dead horse I like to beat, but it's something I keep coming back to is First John because it starts kind of at the antithesis of where we are now with our to use Christopher's ideas here, with our AI Tower of Babel. And it's just John starting his letter, and he says, "What was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have observed and have touched with our hands concerning the word of life. That life was revealed, and we have seen it and testify and declare to you the eternal life that was with the Father and was revealed to us. What we have seen and heard, we also declare to you." So, all of that, the first part is basically John saying, I've experienced this stuff. I've had an experience with Jesus,
Mhm.
and that's what we're sharing with you. And then the second part is I'm sharing it with you so that we may have fellowship. And yeah, I just like that grounding. I think I probably think about that passage once a week because I listen to my Bible on my phone. I do a lot of my Bible study on a laptop. Some of my close fellowship comes from people on the internet. And here's John saying, "You know what? I touched Jesus. I heard Jesus. I saw Jesus. And that's the basis which I have fellowship." What does that look like in today's world, Titus Kipfer?
Yeah, I mean, there's something pretty physical about that, right? Um, and I think it's great to incorporate AI. Like we do this in our company. We encourage our our team to have like one window open with Gemini all day. If you ever have any questions, don't go to your manager, go to Gemini. I think that's super helpful, but at the same time, like we really need physical embodied experiences, um, whether that's exercise or being with people around a table. Like the primary Christian sacraments are very physical: baptism, communion. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think it's just super important to have most of our day. Obviously, if we're staring at a screen for work, that's a little different, but try to do things in the
Or
real
is it?
world.
Yeah.
Well, you have to. I mean, I have to stare at a screen all day. It's my job. But
Or do
when I'm
you?
off work, when what? Do I really? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
what I'm asking because
yeah,
I'm in the same
I
boat for
definitely
a
need
chunk
to
of my
stare at
day.
a screen. I mean, how am I gonna do my job without staring at a screen? Do you have an idea?
I'm just saying maybe you're part of the machine and you need to fight back against it, rise up and say, "No, I will not be involved in a business that requires me to stare at a screen for 6 to 12 hours a day."
Ridiculous. Um,
I know.
when
LOL, that
when
was
when
funny.
when I am off of, maybe Chris is coming in with a hot anti-capitalist take here shortly, which I'll listen to. But yeah, when I'm off work, I really do try to do things that are in the real world, um,
Which is
go
why we
hiking
haven't
through
done
the
this podcast for
Himalayas.
8 months. I appreciate that excuse.
Right. This is not the real world.
Christopher, how are you experiencing Jesus unmediated by screens in 2025?
Yeah, I think my my thought immediately goes to our church. Um, is super super intentional about meeting around tables and around meals. Um, and I appreciate that. It like kind of this idea of being intentionally hyper local, I think is a phrase that has been used, but like in some ways also just like in like trying to think of a word, not just local, but like tangled, um
Hmm.
entangled in some ways. And I think so often we approach community and church and everything very consumeristically, in the sense that, I mean, there's a certain irony to me saying this, because we chose to go to the church that we're going to. So acknowledging that there is an irony there. I think we are so used to just like attending church or being involved with the community or involving ourselves with podcasts or whatever, listening to our podcasts, and we choose every single little thing, and we get to kind of form our lives almost entirely. And being online allows us to do that even more. We have incredibly niche lives,
Mhm.
and I think that that allows us to escape some avenues, some doors through which Jesus might want to reach us. And being forced to actually get to know your actual neighbor, um, forces you, not entirely, because like my actual neighbor is still someone who lives in America. Um, and so I don't get the perspective of someone from India, even though Titus, our brother, is not from India. Um, but like, I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't necessarily get to choose the beliefs or the politics of my neighbor in like a Jesus defined sense. And so like striving to meet people and to interact with and fellowship with people who are local rather than like
Mm-hmm.
customized, like, oh, we go to, New Evangelical Covenant Church or the Conservative Anabaptist Church in the neighborhood, but rather instead striving to be as local as possible and just be with those people. Um, challenges like my assumptions and puts me outside of my comfort zone and all of those things that I think Jesus can meet us in. I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm kind of rambling. I'm very rambly. If you haven't
I'm
figured it
kind of
out.
curious though. So are you saying that your church is hyper local, or that
It
it's
it is a it is attempting to be.
okay? Fair.
It would be dishonest for me to say that it is reflective of that it is like perfectly reflective of the neighborhoods in which we all strive. But instead of all like gathering at in a church building in, some random neighborhood in Philly, we are trying to decentralize it and meet in the neighborhoods.
Mhm.
And because of, we don't have one in our neighborhood yet, at least. And so we travel outside of our neighborhood at the moment. But I think there is a sort of ideal that we would do church with people that we could walk to.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's amazing. Just to kind of throw a wrench in the gear, though, does the fact that we have roads and cars kind of make a 30-minute drive radius of our house local? Um, like I think about, some communities here in India, especially lower income communities. Everyone lives in villages or small towns in India. No one
Uh-huh.
really lives in a house in the country with a big lane. Just doesn't exist. And in the lower income communities, they don't have cars, and so they walk to everything. You have a store for everything you need just within walking distance in these communities. And so that's your local community. But then kind of in the urban centers here, middle upper class, like people who have cars, it is it the same thing to drive 30 minutes to visit someone? Like has technology just made our local community wider, and is that a problem? Um, Especially in a city where it's kind of the same situation 30 minutes from here. It's not like the culture has changed dramatically. It's just a yeah, pretty urbanized modern situation going on.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of interesting questions. Wow. So insightful, Mr. Lion. Um, but for myself, with all my high ideals about like having an embodied Christianity, with my community, we're traveling an hour and 20 minutes to get to church right now, which is very, very much suboptimal.
Well,
And there's a whole thing behind that. But I also think, well, you know what? Let's be real about the reality we have. Instead of always
Uh-huh.
pursuing the ideal,
Uh-huh.
work with the reality and move toward the ideal. Don't give up on it, but don't like have such a high ideal that I'm not actually being realistic about where we are. And so I have children that need fellowship. My wife and I need fellowship. And again, for a whole variety of reasons, we're not doing the local thing. And that's troubling to me. It actually violates some of my convictions, some of which I've shared right here on this podcast. But
Uh-huh.
but that's kind of the reality of where we are right now. And can we move beyond that? Maybe literally move. Can we find better ways of doing it? That's my hope. But don't don't be so focused on the ideal that you actually don't even hit the bare minimum of what's healthy.
Yeah. 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 I I I I agree with that, Drew. And I just think I think that there is some irony. Like we still attend
Lots of irony.
a church in a neighborhood that the neighborhood that we moved from because complicated housing crisis came up and we needed to find a house, and our our pastor let us live in their basement for 7 months while we looked for a house. Found one that that was affordable. And so we moved to this neighborhood primarily for affordability, but we still drive 30 minutes to fellowship with people in Philly. 30 minutes is quite a ways. And I think that there's just this incredible irony that I am driving past all kinds of people who need good Christian community. Probably a lot of people who have good Christian community. I'm not even saying that I have something like profound to bring them, but like we're moving through neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood, and people who I probably could help and bless, and who would be able to help me and bless me. And I think that there's just kind of this weird irony that I'm spending all of this gas, time, and money to be with these people in this other neighborhood, which I think is lovely and good, and I'm super happy that we can do that. The irony just isn't lost on me, and I wonder if that's the ideal for me, and like for you guys, it might be different. And yeah, it's super contextualized. Like there's a contextualized reason why we drive 30 minutes.
Yeah. Recently,
I can't hear you. You're
so
you're
it
muted,
it
Drew.
it, it takes I'm glad he's muted because I got to start talking here. Um, so the church that we've been attending, and also kind of like the neighborhood that there's a nonprofit that we've been helping out with there. Our favorite coffee shop is there, so we go to this part of Dehradun a lot. It's called Rajpur, and it
Mhm.
takes about 20-25 minutes to drive there, just because you drive at 30 miles an hour in India to avoid cows. And my city has super curvy, tiny roads as well because it's kind of in the mountains or close to the mountains. Anyways, it takes a while to get there, but I've realized it's super close to where I live. It's just you have to go on this really roundabout way. So recently I couldn't
Yeah.
no Ubers wanted to pick me up on the way back. So I was like, I pulled out Google Maps and I was like, I know I can walk home. And I saw some school kids take this little side road down towards the direction that I knew our house was. And so I just followed them, and it took me down
Mhm.
like these awesome little alleys, and across a
That's awesome.
riverbed. And eventually I got to like they call them societies, our community, and I had a wall that I was trying to crawl across but couldn't. And so I had to kind of walk around, and the whole experience was, I loved it because I was seeing all these
Mhm.
little communities, especially more low income communities that I would have never otherwise ended up in, couldn't even drive to because it's like these little alleys you walk through. Um, I saw what I call real India, which we expats can very nicely avoid a lot of the time. Um, in cities here, and it was just this amazing experience I had. So I'm with you, Chris. Like there is something to having to walk somewhere where suddenly you
Mhm.
notice everything around you and you feel connected to everything around you. Where if you're in this little car, you're in this little cocoon, you're separated from everything. Little air conditioned bubble that gets you from point A to
Yep.
point B. Um, Especially in India where there's sensory overload whenever you're not in an air-conditioned bubble. To get out of that and walk somewhere is a really cool experience. And I did make it
Yeah.
home. It was quite the experience, but I made it home on foot.
Nice. Yeah, I think my encouragement to myself, and it's been reinforced by talking with you guys, is to keep aware of what better options there are, but to do well what I am doing now.
Mhm.
And if I have the blessing of being able to drive around and drive an hour and 20 minutes to get to church, well, maybe I do that. But maybe I find other things I can do as well. And I am enjoying engaging with our community that's a little bit more local. Also, we're in northern Wisconsin. There are no people here, so
Yeah. You're not driving through just a tremendous amount of neighborhoods to get to.
I mean, I joke about it, but
Yeah.
yeah, we drive past plenty of churches on our way down.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
Half of them are Lutheran
Corn
because it's
corn has
Wisconsin.
started
Yeah.
gathering to worship our Lord and Savior.
Corn.
Yeah.
Joseph's coin.
I'm surprised you're driving past congregations. I didn't know that corn and frozen tundra has started a meeting.
No, the corn has been harvested now. I think we should
Wow.
wrap up with just a
Yeah.
simple question. Did you have one more thought,
Oh,
Christopher?
I've heard Amish people explain this as a reason why they don't drive cars,
Right.
because that they, you know, famously can gather and like throw a barn up, super quickly. That sort of intentional hyper local community, that choosing not to engage in technology such as cars, which C.S. Lewis would love. C.S. Lewis hated cars. Um, forces a sort of tight knit intentional community, and this isn't me making a case for why people should be Amish, because there's a lot of problems there that I'm not qualified to address, but it is an interesting perspective.
Yeah. So let's wrap up by asking, and future episodes will come out one on a consistent basis to have much more clearly defined content and voices that are
Definitely.
experts.
Definitely.
Sometimes the voices will be us, and sometimes it'll be just like somebody else you have come in. But today was a getting to know you. So as long as we don't, like, every episode release is a new episode for a new season, the bar is really low for the content. But no, I thought we could wrap up by Titus, what's one thing you're doing or our audience might be able to do to draw closer to Jesus in the next 2 weeks?
You're really putting us on the spot here, Drew.
What am I doing to draw close to Jesus, and what can our audience do?
Or just the first one, and maybe the audience can take inspiration from it or not.
Yeah. I mean, kind of along with our theme, I think just staying off screens as much as possible will help you be closer to God. And I really believe that. You don't even necessarily need to go and pray during that time. Just stay off your screens and you'll be able to hear God's voice more clearly. I'm convinced of that. Set some
Solid.
boundaries around that. Yeah.
Christopher, what are you doing? What have you done? What will you do to be closer to Jesus in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think I want to piggyback off of that, but I can also pivot and say that, like, being in community with people, and I mean I make the argument that it should be local people you can see face to face, but just any community where you can be honest, and they can be honest to you, has probably been like the single most one of the most helpful things for me. And I don't say that with like a lot of expertise. I say that as like someone who in the last 2 weeks has had to have some very real conversations, of which I would rather not have. So I say this with like fresh pain of like, I think it's good, even if it was unpleasant.
And I think for me, I will suggest that you should read Ephesians 1. I'm doing
Look
some
at your
sort of
scripture.
reading with a friend, and we're just working our way very slowly through the book of Ephesians now. I
It's a good
ran
book.
across this guy's sermons, Brian Abasciano. He does some great work around responses to Calvinism and such. But he's also a pastor of a church in New Hampshire, and he spent like 6 weeks just preaching through the first chapter of Ephesians.
Oh wow.
And so what I
Awesome.
want to say, like, his way of approaching it was just like, let's look at this little piece that Paul talks about, and what does this tell us about Jesus? And then let's look at this piece, and how can we worship Jesus from this piece? So if you just wanted a spiritual exercise, read Ephesians chapter 1 2 or 3 times, or listen to it over and over again. It's beautiful, and it just reminds me when the president is doing the president things, and the drug dealers are doing the drug dealer things, and the lab monkeys are escaping. Jesus is still good, and he's chosen us in him. So that's my word. Thanks for joining me, Christopher and Titus, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Peace.